Hello, welcome to Wardrobe School. I'm Vanya, and in this video, I'm going to show you how easy it can be to embroider on sheer fabric. With this process, using your regular sewing machine, you can make lace-looking pieces, like see-through fabrics that can be like cover-ups. You can make details, you can make bridal, veils, all sorts of cool things, even appliques for shirts, for pieces, and even artwork. So in this case, for me, I'm making a piece for a friend who just moved into a new apartment, and he asked me for a piece of my art, and the apartment is very bright, so I thought I could work with light, and so I decided to work on silk organza. It doesn't need to be silk. You could do this on any like see-through fabric, could be polyester organza. It's just that I have this organza, so we're gonna do it on this one. All right. And throughout the video, I'm gonna show you all the secrets because it looks like it's hard, but it's actually, if you do a few things, a few hacks, you can do it easily and end up with a beautiful piece of art or clothing or anything you want to make. Okay, for this, I'm using my old Singer sewing machine. So let's get started. All right, so here's what I'm doing. I drew the design here on the fabric already and I placed on the hoop. I'll talk to you about the first secrets that you should know, but I just want to say that one thing that's a hack that I have, there's a silk organza, it's 100% silk, but it's recycled. So what I do is when I go thrifting, I look for wedding dresses that have real silk fabric, because people get married and they save the dress for a while, then they give away. And so sometimes it's very expensive dresses that are given away and you find at the thrift store. And this one had like this big overskirt and all silk organza. So I bought the dress, removed the skirt, and then washed it, and I keep using the fabric. It was $20 for the dress, and you took again go up to like $100 a yard. So it was a great score, and I always look for it. Okay, and you can also find shirts and clothing that are made out of silk organza. So the first thing is the secret I want to tell you, right? The first secret, which is the hoop. So when I do free motion embroidery in general, I like to do very tight, like the hoop. I usually use like a hoop with a screw adjustable, so then I can make it real tight. But for when it's silk or linen, when it's fine fabrics, I cannot really tight much, right? Because it will ruin the fabric, it ruins the weave of the fabric. So what I do is first thing I cover the hoop, which you probably seen people who do this, and also put this extra fabric here for two reasons. The first reason is one, usually we do that, and I learned that from my mentors, use that to adjust. So because when you have to pull as you embroider, the fabric loosens up a little bit from the hoop. It gets a little looser. So, and then this, you need to adjust. In general, if it's just some regular fabric, you adjust all over. But because it's fine fabric, you need this to pull it up a little bit, right? As you work. The other reason is because I use this hoop with adjustment, this part, since it's open, it always gets a little less tight. And so I like to double the fabric so then it's sure that it's there, So then it's ready to go. And I'm just gonna start stitching. I'm using rayon thread. That's because ideally I would use silk thread, but then there's no silk thread available anymore, and if there is, super expensive. So I use rayon, and rayon is just softer when you're working with fine fabric. If you're using a polyester organza, that's okay to use polyester thread, and if you have polyester thread, you're good. All right, so let's start stitching. Now, the second secret I want to tell you. You see how my machine is like silver here, and then it's black, and there's all those holes, and this machine is also zigzag. For this design, we're gonna do only straight stitch. I'm not gonna do any zigzag. And so if I just place my hoop here and I start to embroider, I don't see much, or there's a lot of confusion there. I can see obviously, but it's not very clear. So then what I do is I put a piece of paper there, and something else I learned first. So then not only I'm covering all the confusion there, it'll be easier for me to see the design traced on my fabric, and also it helps the machine to behave better. I'll show you why. So now I just need to run a little bit without the thread to make the hole there. Then I thread it. And see, I can see very clearly now. And also it helps when I said the machine behaves better. It's because sometimes, well, now I need to bring the thread through the hole, through the paper, through everything. So I have both threads. Okay, so what happens is when you're working with straight stitch, or depending on the fabric you do, this is a hack for to make your life easier when you're doing straight stitch only, because just keeps, the one thing that has below my fabric is this little hole. That's it, right? The paper is covering everything. So there's no way for my fabric to grab onto anything, any threads to tangle. It really avoids issues. So that's why I also like this hack. All right, so I'm gonna start stitching and then I'll show you more secrets as I do. So I went apart already. One thing I want to tell you is that the other thing is the bottom thread has to be the same color as the top thread. By the way, if you want to learn more and know everything about free motion embroidery, join my membership. It's called Free Motion Sewing Club. Find the link below here and join us. There's a lot of sewists doing all sorts of awesome free motion work, free motion teaching art and all sorts of stuff. Join us, all right? Anyway, so because when I'm doing regular free motion stitching, I just use a cheap thread in the bobbin, and I usually keep one color. So say I'm working with dark fabric, I use a black bobbin for everything. And so, but for this, it has to be the color that you're stitching. Otherwise, it just looks funny, unless you want the funny look, right? So let me do a flower here to show you what's the idea that I'm, because the thing is, when you're working on fine fabric, is it can be too heavy, right? The stitching, especially if it's something that's going to be hanging, if it's on tulle, so you do something light. That's why I'm not using zigzag. Look, this flower, for instance. I want to mark the outline, right? Let's do this petal. So I do many stitches, and see how I pull my hook kind of fast? So then I have long stitches. And now the outline is marked, right? Then I go just to fill in, but I fill it in with light one-liners. So then it won't be too much going on there. But it will create the shade anyway when it's done. See, let's do this one. So I outline first, then I do a lot of stitches, many rows, right? Then I go in and go slowly with just some light lines, single lines. See? Then that one I can mark. And you can also do this colorful, it would be beautiful. Okay, so I have another secrets, but one, if you've been following me, you should probably know because I would say the same thing. If you're not, if you're new, you're gonna find out. But so why we do this last piece here that is like a butterfly moth looking animal that I think I'm just gonna do the outline. So the secret is, and on this case, I'm not even need too much because silk organza is actually kind of like, depending on the silk organza, right? But it's kind of strong and stiff. It's not very flowy like silk charmeuse, for instance. So if you're doing on charmeuse or CGC silk, or even like cotton, you know, if it's very like light cotton, you notice that the fabric wants to bunch up, and you can't stretch much because again it could rip it, right? So what you do is you hold it with your fingers. And I know I'm not using a foot. I don't use a darning foot because I'm just so used to this and I like to see the design. But you can also use a darning foot if you want. But still, then you stretch. That's what the secret is. You stretch with your fingers as you stitch. And then when you take it out of the hoop, it's not very, there's no problem, basically. So after you do a couple times, you get used to it. Embroidering fine fabrics. And the last secret, I'm going to leave it for last. A little. See here, for instance, it's good if I hold it. The other thing is try to never, not never because it's impossible, but try avoiding stitching on top of the same place many times because the machine doesn't like that. You see how I do many rows, but I try to do next to one row next to the other. And the last secret is iron your work, okay? I always say that for sewing, for everything, you have to press your work. For embroidery, especially a delicate like that, just press the back. I never press the front of my embroidery, always the back, okay? Because you don't want to ruin the top. You just press the back to make it flat and nice, beautiful, okay? Let me know if you do. If you make something, tag me on Instagram, a wardrobe school. And if you want to learn exactly how to get started and join a wonderful community of sewists who are doing free motion stitching every day, join Free Motion Sewing Club, okay? The link is below. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.